Hello, my name is Danica and it's been a while. So I've been very busy with school and I'm going into practicum, which should be even busier, but I have a week break and I thought I would do a video before doing that because I missed you all and I miss doing videos. So I wanted to give you a little update in my reading life. So I thought I would share some of the best books that I've been reading this year. These are just going to be roughly by genre, so I'm starting off with YA. The first YA that I read and loved this year was Pulp by Ramin Talley, and I kind of already knew I would love this book because I am a little bit obsessed with lesbian pulp fiction and the history of lesbian pulp fiction, so putting that in a YA novel, it was pretty much going to be a perfect match for me, but luckily it lived up to that. I also liked learning more about the Lavender Scare, which I didn't have a lot of background knowledge of before reading Pulp, and I really liked the main character. I think a lot of people didn't like Abby, who's the present day main character, but I thought that they were both flawed but really sympathetic. I couldn't help but feel for them. The next one was This Is What It Feels Like by Rebecca Barrow, and it has this beautiful cover. You should really just read it because of the cover, but it's a literal getting the band back together book. It's about a group of 3 teenage girls. They have just graduated from high school at the beginning of the book, I believe. They used to be a band together, they used to be inseparable, and then they kind of had this big falling out. One of them had a baby and another one of them was an alcoholic and had to be hospitalized for alcohol poisoning, and it kind of broke them apart because she didn't want her around the baby, but also because it was just really hard to deal with her being in danger all the time and trying to keep her safe. I really liked that this book dealt with these difficult relationships and that it's not just that they refuse to communicate. They do communicate and they talk about their problems, but they're really difficult, thorny problems, and it takes a long time to work through that. So I appreciated that it didn't just put off having them talk about the issues, but instead they just had to keep grappling with this. It's also diverse. I think 2 of the 3 main characters are Black. One of the Black characters is a lesbian, and there is a cute little FF romance in there as well. So there's an FF romance and an MF romance. And just recently I finished Once and Future by Corey McCarthy and Amy Rose Capetta. This is such an ambitious book. It's a King Arthur retelling. It also manages to blend sci-fi, fantasy, and this corporate dystopia perfectly. And of course, basically the entire cast is queer. There's Merlin, who has been aging backwards and is now a teenager and is also gay. Basically all of the cast is queer. There's a non-binary character who uses they them pronouns, and there's also an asexual character. There's an FF romance and an MM romance. It is an epic story. There's a lot of really funny stuff, but there is also a lot of action and adventure and just heartbreak. It's also the first in a series, and I am really excited to pick up the next series because I will say that it ends on an intriguing note for sure. I wouldn't call it a cliffhanger. You do get a good sense of resolution from this, but you can also see that there's a lot more to go. So moving on to my favorite comics and graphic novels that I've read this year so far. So a coworker said, I just read a book and I thought of you, you're gonna love it, and they lent me a copy of Girl Town by Carolyn Nowak, and I am so flattered to be associated with this queer weirdo feelings book. It's a collection of short stories and they're all totally strange and they all deal with complex relationships between women, and the book starts with the lines, I have lived with Ashley and Jolene since we all got kicked out of astronaut school for being too good looking to be sent into space. So that kind of sets the tone. So this is very strange, which again you might get from the cover. I would recommend it. And recently I finally started Princeless Raven the Pirate Princess series. I read the first 3 books. What happened in the 3rd book that I'm not so sure about, but other than that I loved them. Lots of action and adventure. It's a diverse all-woman pirate crew. There's an FF romance. The main character is queer. I think she's a lesbian. I couldn't help but compare it to Lumberjanes for the female friendship and kind of middle grade, but I think this is aimed more at teens. One of the things I really liked about it is that you get to know so many of the crew. It's not just concentrating on the main few characters. You really get a sense of the personality of all of the women. them on the ship, which I thought was great. And of course, Aquacorn Cove by Katie O'Neill. This is the same author as Princess Ever After and The Tea Dragon Society. I just love her artwork. It's so sweet. Her biography says she writes gentle fantasy stories, and I think that's a perfect description. And of course, there's a little FF romance between this woman and I don't know how to describe her. She's like a mythical underwater creature who's not a mermaid. She looks kind of like a Pokemon, let's be honest. So it's super cute, but there's also a little bit of an undercurrent of sadness in here. The main character's mother has passed away, and it deals a little bit with that and her kind of dealing with the aftermath. And it also has an environmentalist message, and it has some information at the back about coral reefs and the dangers to coral reefs and how we can take care of them. My next category is adult sci-fi, fantasy, horror, anything in that general genre. Starting with Carmilla, edited by Carmen Maria Machado. So Carmen Maria Machado wrote Her Body and Other Parties, which is a short story collection that is amazing. She edited this version of Carmilla, which is by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, and I wasn't sure how much her editing would affect the story, but it turns out it really does, because in her introduction she creates this framing device that completely changes the story, and it totally reclaims and queers it. This is definitely the best edition to read if you are a queer reader of Carmilla. If that's what you're coming to Carmilla for, which is what I came to it for, then definitely pick up this one. She also includes, there's just a few of them, but they're amazing, these footnotes where they're like mini short stories where she fleshes out completely minor characters. It also includes these beautiful illustrations. I already liked Carmilla, but in a kind of conflicted way. This one really made it clear what I like about the story and what I don't like about the story, and it was like being led by this friendly queer guide through this story. If you've already read this book, read it again with her edition, and if you haven't read it yet, definitely try this one. And then I read the book Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink, and I love the podcast. It starts the same as the podcast, and then they go in different directions, mostly because of the medium, so the book is a lot more streamlined. It goes on less tangents, which I kind of missed, but it probably wouldn't have worked well in book form. In case you're not familiar with Alice Isn't Dead, first of all, you should really listen to the podcast. It's great. It's very creepy. It's by the same creator as Welcome to Night Vale. It's surreal. It's this road trip story, and it deals with these monstrous humanoids who eat people, who also have some kind of power, like probably in the government. There doesn't seem to be any way to get anyone to acknowledge that this is happening or do anything about it. And it's about the main character trying to find her missing wife, Alice, who everyone thinks is dead, but she keeps seeing in the background of news stories. She's trying to track her down, figure out what happened, figure out this whole mystery mess horror show, and also deal with her own anxiety. So Joseph Fink has anxiety and talks about how the portrayal of anxiety in this story reflects his own experience. So it's an own voices representation for that, and I thought it was really well handled. It's amazing. I gave it 5 stars. I think you should listen to the podcast and then read the book, or either way, just do both, or either, but both. And then I read Gnarled Hollow by Charlotte Green, and this was a bit of a surprise for me. So I really love A Haunting on Hill House. I will absolutely maintain that it is queer, and I have not found another haunted house book that scratches the same itch. I love the idea of haunted house books, and I find it so difficult to find quality haunted house books. There's House of Leaves, that's an experience, that's a whole other thing. But this was the first book I read that really satisfied that for me. It felt so similar to Haunting of Hill House, not in a negative way, just in, I think it really had a similar vibe, but the queerness was explicit. There's an FF romance. If you're looking for a horror story that's just sort of haunting and creepy and off-putting, I would recommend this one. And the last one for this category is A Study in Honor by Claire O'Dell. This is another really ambitious book that is also another retelling. So it's a Sherlock Holmes retelling, but both Sherlock and Watson are Black women. I think that Sherlock is queer, definitely Watson is. And it's also set during the Second American Civil War, so it's sort of post-Trump. The Watson character, she lost an arm during the war, and she has a mechanical one. She has sort of an android type arm, but it's not functioning well. She has like a cheap one for war vets that she needs to get upgraded. There's a lot going on with the world and with the retelling, but I love that it really fleshed out the characters. You really get a good sense of the characters and their interactions with each other, and there's a mystery element to it, obviously, for Sherlock Holmes. I'm excited to pick up the second one in the series too. This was like not something I would usually gravitate towards, but I am glad that I tried it because I loved it. I thought it took on so much and managed to pull it off. And finally, the last book that I have read this year that I really want you to know about is Care Work, Dreaming Disability Justice by Leah Lakshmi Piepzna-Samarasinha. She also wrote Body Map, which is one of my favorite books. It's a book of poetry. Care Work is nonfiction. It's a collection of essays about disability justice, and disability justice is disability activism that centers queer and trans, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And it's hard to talk about because it is brilliant. My review ended up just being a bunch of bullet points of random thoughts that I have about this book because I was reading it and it was like every couple sentences I'd need to just stare off into space just to process all of the ideas that were in this book. And it's not difficult to read. It's not written in like a dense or intimidating way, but there's just so many really thought-provoking things in this book, and it's something that I don't know a lot about. I don't know a lot about disability activism in general, never mind disability justice in particular. So this was really eye-opening for me. It was definitely something I'm going to be thinking about for a long time, and one that I think I definitely want to reread, and I think I'll get something different every time I read it. It should be required reading in so many different contexts. Care Work was my favorite book that I've read this year so far because it just blew my mind. And that's it. Those are my favorite books that I've read in 2019 so far. How are you all? I've missed you. I've really missed BookTube, and in the summer I will definitely be going back to doing regular videos. I can't guarantee anything during my practicum because it will be very busy, but I'm also really excited and looking forward to it. So that will be until the end of May. So let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought about them, and anything else you want to comment. Just, I miss you. Come talk to me, and thanks for watching.